Welcome all, Bernie here from EWPRO. Let's get straight into this weekly outlook, starting with the DXY on the daily time frame. So nothing's changed on the daily. I'm still not convinced that this is the actual low here. We can get an A, B, C, another one down in here, or more to the point, like we got 1, 2, 3 down, and then an A, B, C flat in here before we get another one down. Or second scenario is it just keeps on going up from here and breaks the top. But like I've mentioned, I'm not convinced that that is the actual low. When we go down onto the lower time frame, the H4, you'll see that there's still possible more upside in here. We have like a 1, 2, 3, 4. We can get away 5 up in here. We do have a bull hidden in here. So I'm not ruling out another one up in here before we get more downside. On the H1, you'll see that we may start to get a, well, there's a couple of scenarios. We can get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in here, just breaking that low, that wave 5 without breaking this low in here. And then we get it up, get that fifth wave up, or it just goes from here. On the M15, it sort of hasn't given us a nice entry, and I'd be very careful here because we do have a bear hidden. It's not valid, but I'd at least want an A, B, C in here, some sort of a flat, and then a buy set up on the lower time frames to look for a buy. Other than that, yeah. AU, I would really like to have seen a little bit more upside in here. We've got an A, B, C up in here for that larger A, B, C. Still not ruling out more upside up to that 100 fib, but it's looking less and less likely now. We sort of have 3 down in here. Well, 1, 2, 3. It's bounced off the 100 fib here, so we may get a scalp. I mean, this is very deep in here. This, like, we got an impulse up in here off that 100 fib. It's a very deep correction. So it may just give us 3 up in here, but if you're lucky, if you do get an entry in here somewhere, I'd be looking for at least 3 up. You definitely want to be at break even at the break of that top there. If you're lucky, it goes up and breaks the top. But I wouldn't be expecting it. I'd just be expecting an A, B, C, and then possibly like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, you may get lucky with a buy in here, and it takes off and does break the top. But like I said, more than likely it's just going to be like an A, B, C. So you definitely want to be a break even at the break of that top if you get a entry on it. GU, we got the ABC here. It never got anywhere near this 100 fib here. I'm looking at that ABC. We got the C up already. Nothing's really changed since last week on the H4. I'm looking at that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'm looking for this ABC here. That's playing out. Again, you may get a buy set up in here. It's more on the lower time frame, but we got a nice impulse up from a low. So if we get like 3 down or 5 down in here, some sort of a correction in here, then you could look for another one up. Just for, you know, it may not go far, but you never know. And then I'd be looking for a downside because I am looking at this as a flat like that A, B, C here. So it may even be finished here, and you may get a sell set up also. It's pretty choppy at the top here, but we do have like an impulse down. So if we get a correction in here, 3 up, a correction, well, you could look for at least 3 down, 1, 2, 3. And if you're lucky, it goes and breaks the low. EU, EU bounced off that 100 fib, that A, B, C. We bounced clean off that 100 fib there. So that may be the end of this wave C. Very similar to GU. We got the 5 up here. We got a larger correction. This is very choppy breaking the top though. So this may be like an A, B, C here, and then we get the A, B, C. Larger correction before we get more upside. Like 5, 3, 5. I'm not ruling that out at this stage. H1, you've got to be pretty careful. It's very similar to GU. We got an impulse up. So if we can get a correction in here, 3 down, and then a buy set up on the lower time frames, well, you could look for at least 3 up, and see how far it goes. Yeah. NU, really looking for a lot of upside here. It hasn't gone. Unfortunately, this NU never went. But I'm looking at that A, B, C. And in here, internally, we got one A, B, C in here. So I'm still looking for a C up. Like I've mentioned, until this low here is broken, I'm looking at it as a flat. Well, not so much a flat. It's more of a complex correction. But if we get a buy set up in here, I'd be looking for this, that A, B, and a C up. So I'm really interested in looking for a buy here. We do have a lot of bullish divergence here, and it's starting to look, I mean, it's not the best. It's definitely not the best because we didn't get a really nice impulse here. And we do actually have a bear hidden here, between that top and this one. So, that bear hidden there. So it is quite risky, but if I got a bullish setup in here, I would be considering taking it because of where we are on the daily. We're right at a low. This is looking rather corrective. So, if you did get a buy set up, I'd be looking for a buy. Yeah. If you don't get a buy set up, don't take it. You need a nice buy set up to be able to take it because it is so messy. GY, I'm looking for this A, B, C down. I'm looking for that C down. It's not ready yet though. We're bouncing off this 100 pip here for this A, B, C. We're bouncing off that 100 pip. But there's nothing to say that there's not any more upside in it. I believe there is because we're getting some sort of a flat in here. So we got like an A, B, C in here. If I go down to the lower time frames, we had that big gap at the start of Monday on Monday gap, but we are getting bullish divergence in here. It's more on the even lower time frames. I'd want a nice flat in here, like A, B, C. Get some sort of a flat in here, some sort of a correction, and then if you got a buy set up, you could look for a buy for a little bit more upside. But like I've mentioned, we are on the daily. We are at that 100 pip, so you've got to be very careful here. UY, nothing's really changed since last week. I'm looking at all this as correction for at least an A, B, C. And then we may get like an A, B, C, larger correction, and then an A, B, C. This may turn into a really large correction on the higher time frames before we get more upside. And I dare say that's what we're going to get after we've had so much upside. We're right at the top of a market here. So yeah. H4, well, it's more on the H1 I'm looking at here. As you can see, I've got this count on for a while. I'd be looking at another one up in here. Look, we got 1, 2, 3. We wait for a wave 4, and then we trade a wave 5 up. We don't have any bullish divergence in here. So yeah, I'd be looking for a buy. There is no buy set up on it at this stage. Even on the M15, I mean, you sort of, well, M15, we got a bear hidden here, so you got to be careful in a flat. Like if we get a little flat in here, you could look for a 3 up, and it may or may not go and break that top. Ideally, if you do get into a buy on the lower time frames, it does go up and break that top, because then you'll be able to hold this position wherever you get in for a 1, 2, 3, wave 4, and you add for the wave 5 up. If you get into this position, if it gives you a buy setup. But at this stage, it's really, I mean, I shouldn't be going down to the M5, but for an example, you know, we've got an impulse up. I'll be looking at some sort of a flat. This is quite choppy breaking the top. So if we get a nice C down in here and then an entry, you could look for those 3 up. It's pretty much just scalping, you know. UCAD, looking at that 1, 2, 3, possibly a wave 4 in here, and then we get a wave 5 up on the weekly. On the daily, I'm looking at that WXY X2, and we get a Z down. We do have a bear hidden in here, so we definitely can get more downside. Again, it's not giving us any sell setups. I was looking for this wave Z up in here, like that WXY X2 a Z up in here. Instead, it gave us that lower low there, and then gave us that Z up. But yeah, I'm more interested in the downside. But again, it's not giving us any downside. This is still very much more bullish, you know, this in here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do get another one up in here. And then I'd like to see a nice impulse down, a bearish correction, and then I can look for a sell. I'm more interested in the impulse down, a correction, and I'll look for a sell. Because we will start to get bearish divergence. Once this top's broken, we'll get bearish divergence. The Swissy, again, like I've been mentioning many times, you know, I'm not convinced that this is the low. We got that like A, B, C. Haven't got down to that 100 fib yet. H4, we are starting to fall over here. Ideally, this does come down and break that low. Then gives us a nice impulse up, correction, and then I can look for buys. As for the sells, I mean, you can look for a sell, but it's you're right. You're selling right at the low, you know, right at the low. But if I go down to H1, you'll see that you possibly could get a sell in here. We sort of have like 1, 2, 3. So you get away for, ideally, I'd want to see a bear hidden in here. And then I could trade that wave 5 down, breaking the low. That's pretty much all there is at this stage. You'd be looking for a wave 4 and then a sell setup to trade that wave 5 down at this stage. And again, like I said, we're right down on the low on the daily, so sells are quite risky. EG on the daily, pretty much leaving this alone. We've already got the 5 up. We're looking for this 5th wave up in here as well, and we're even looking for that wave 3. But we had that ball hidden in there to give us that wave 5. Now I'm looking for a larger correction. I need a larger correction before I can look for buys. Other than that, it's, you know, it's quite risky. I would be leaving it alone until we get that larger correction. You could look for a sell, you know, like an A, a B, and a C down in here. But as you can see, it's very choppy. All this is very choppy in here. I mean, we were even looking for this up in here with that ball hidden in there. You know, I mean, you could look for a sell. It is quite risky. I would be leaving it alone until we get that daily correction, which could take, you know, 6 months, you know, before we get a complete correction. WTI on the daily, you know, we've just about broken this low, so that's good. I'm waiting for this low here to be broken. Once that's broken, well, then I can start to look for buy setups for that larger C up. Until this low is broken, I'm pretty much leaving it alone. on the H4, you can see we're getting a lot of bullish divergence in here. We're getting all that bullish divergence. H1, we're getting all the bullish divergence as well. So I'm not looking for a sell. I'm just waiting for that low to be broken like I showed, and then I'll start to look for buys. Other than that, if this did come up here, break that top there and give you a correction, well, you could look for a buy, but more than likely it's just going to be 1, 2, 3 up and then more downside. If you're lucky, it does take off. But yeah, it's pretty much just scalping the buys until that low is broken, that daily low. Gold, pretty much leaving it alone. We got well, it didn't actually complete the correction I was looking for here. I was looking for like an A, a B, and a C in here. I was looking for one down in here. It never gave it until it took off. We're right at the top of the market here. Buying is, quite dangerous. We got 5 up here on the H4, and we've lost all the divergence in that wave 5. So I'm looking for at least a larger correction before I can look for another 5, 3, 5. So I really need a larger correction before I can start to look for buys. Other than that, you're just trading with the trend, going with the trend scalping, which is buys. More than likely, by the look of the H1, we'll get a bull hidden in here. We sort of need an a B, and a C down, and then you could look for a buy. Again, it's pretty much just scalping to break the top. And you could even, if you get a nice B wave in here, you could actually look for a C down. If you're lucky, it falls over for you, but silver pretty much the same as gold. We got this A wave, so I'm waiting for a B. I need this B wave before I can start to look for a C up. Really need a large correction in here. Yeah. Other than that, it's like gold. You're pretty much just trading with the trend, and yeah. Let's put wave 5 up here. Actually, we've got to be careful here. You could actually look for a buy here on the H1. We do have like an A, a B, and a C here, a flat. So if you go right down onto the lower time frames, you may be able to find a buy set up here with that flat. It's quite risky. I mean, I teach you how to get into trades like this when we have these flats. You may get like an ABC here on the lower time frame and then get an entry. It may just give you 1, 2, 3 up. So you got to get it to break even quick. After you get that C down, if you get a bullish setup to enter, well, then you look for that C up. If it keeps on going, well, all good. You hold it and for this flat. But yeah, I'd be looking for at least an A, B, C up in here on the lower time frames. Bitcoin, very similar to silver. We got the 5 up, larger correction, and we got more upside as well. We got getting all that bearish divergence as well. I would be looking for a sell. This may be a good opportunity to get into a sell. Last week, it was very difficult because we actually had this bull hidden. We had that bull hidden there. So it started to go, but then it come down. Now we have like a nice impulse down. So if we get a correction, you can look for a sell. I would be looking for a sell. And we may even get a flat in here. Like an A. All this is a B. We get a C up in here. And then if you get a sell set up, well, you could look for a sell. And this is the flat. But like an A, B, C. So I would be looking for this C down. Well, for a sell setup after we get that C up, I'd be looking for the larger C down. Sell. S&P 500, right up the top of the market again. Really not much to do. You're just scalping, going with the trend until we get a nice sell set up. Yeah, this is very messy in here, and you can see why. We're right at the top of the market. You got to be extremely careful when we're right up the top of the market like this. This can fall over, very easily. Little bit of bad news, and it falls over. If you're caught in a buy, it could wipe your account out. At this stage, I'm pretty much leaving it alone until I get a nice correction. AU 200, well, I would be looking for a sell here, some sort of an A, a B, get a C down. I'd be looking for a sell in here on the lower time frames. We're getting all that bearish divergence on the daily. So, we do have bearish divergence on the H4, but we don't have a nice impulse down. I'd like to see an impulse down, nice correction, and then I could look for A, B, C. The FTSE, very similar. There's not much you can do. We've got a nice A wave. We need to wait for a B wave, and then we can trade a C up. So, again, this may not be over. We still may get more upside in here. There's a couple of scenarios here. We do have a possible ball hidden forming, but we can get like an A, a B, a C, a flat, and then you get an A, B, C before it goes. So this is what I'm sort of looking at. You could like scalp a sell in here and then look for a buy, So you could scalp it, but again, you're scalping right at the top of the market. Yeah. The DAX, I would be leaving it alone too. I mean, I'd be looking at all this as correction. So we get some sort of we got a nice impulse up. We get an A, B, C, then the A, B, C. We need some sort of a larger correction before we can start to look for buys again. Till we get this, I would be staying out of the buys. And you may even get a sell set up for this C down. Extremely risky because we don't know how far this will go. We've broken the top here in 3 waves, so we get an A, B, C, and then it can take off and break the top again. There's no sell setup. That's the problem. H4 we got a ball hidden, so it can still give us another one up. There's H1. Well, we did get a sell set up here, but that's over. We got this nice impulse down here. Then we had that 3 up there. To sell, and as you can see, it was very choppy. But yeah, I'd be very careful trading it when we're right up the top of the market here. So I hope you enjoyed the weekly outlook. If you did, please hit the like button, share and subscribe. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you out there next week.